right, welcome back to the Mike and George Show. Coming up on today's podcast, we're going to react to last night's college football playoff ranking show, some possible chaos that we can see unfolding. Also, after that, we'll do an NFL recap, kind of update everybody, catch everyone up to speed, and then look ahead to a couple of the big games this Sunday. We got a couple of big NFC games this Sunday. But George, let's get into last night's rankings. I know we said we were going to talk about this. Not major surprises. I mean, there was some teams that moved up, some teams that moved down. What was our overall? We'll put the rankings up here. So the top five is Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5. We did see one movement. The Red Raiders went from number 8 to number 6. They jumped Ole Miss, who played the Citadel, and they obviously jumped BYU, who they just beat. Ole Miss went to 7, Oregon went to 8, Notre Dame went to 9, and Texas moved up to 10. So what were our overall thoughts on the top 25 rankings last night?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too upset about anything. Nothing egregious, I don't think. I mean, obviously we've got a few weeks left here still, so right now it doesn't really matter a ton in the grand scheme of things. But obviously, it kind of we see how the committee reacts. This is the first week where they've kind of been able to see how they weigh the wins out, and like who what they care about. Obviously BYU just lost to Texas Tech, so that helped Texas Tech out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think the top 10, I like what I see. I mean, there's a lot of things to keep an eye on. We talked about it right before we went on air, but the ACC is just like totally confusing right now. Like, are they going to get a single team in, right? So, yeah, I wasn't too upset about it. I mean, I thought that it's weird because, we'll get the details here in a minute, but, the Texas Tech one, like their loss, not nearly as good as some of the other losses in that top 10, I think. Ole Miss, not a bad loss. Oregon, not a bad loss. Georgia, Alabama, obviously not bad losses. So, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how Texas Tech gets weighed out. But right now, I'm not too upset about anything. I'm just kind of excited to see how it all shapes up because it's got a lot of chaos that's probably going to ensue here over the coming weeks.
Yeah, let's talk about the chaos. So the cut line right now is 10. So 10 is the last team in, which is Texas. The first team out would be Oklahoma at 11. And you might be like, wait, why is Oklahoma out? They're ranked 11th. Well, they have to have 5 conference champions, as you mentioned already. So the ACC, the highest ranked ACC team is Miami at 15. So Miami would be in the field according to them. Now, I do want to ask you, George, because this was interesting to me. They put Miami as like the conference champion, as the conference representative for the ACC. Miami's not going to be in the ACC title game. Like, I don't know if they knew that or not, or they're just ranking. Like, the correct way to do it is not ranking the highest. It's not the highest ranked conference. It's not the highest ranked team from the conference. It's the highest ranked conference champions that get in. So Miami at this point is 7th in the ACC. So they're not going to be playing in Charlotte to, win their way in like we saw Clemson do last year. Miami has to get in as an at-large. So you highlighted the chaos already, but let's just kind of get into it now. So Georgia Tech at this point would be playing Virginia if the season ended today. It'd be Georgia Tech against Virginia. Georgia Tech's ranked 16th. Virginia's ranked 19th. Now here's the funny part though, George. We were talking about this off air. The ACC right now has 5 teams with just 1 loss. So kind of 5 teams that control their own destiny, if you will. Georgia Tech is 5-1. Virginia's 5-1. This is in league play. Pitt is 5-1. SMU is 5-1. SMU is unranked. Duke is 4-1. Duke is 5-4 in their Duke's 5-4, but they're 4-1 in league play. So they control their own destiny to Charlotte, which is crazy. Louisville is 4-2, but they play SMU, so they can gain ground. Miami's 3-2, and they don't have tiebreakers with Louisville or SMU because they lost to both those teams. So Miami really doesn't have a path to Charlotte. What do we make of the ACC in general first? And then could Miami get in as an at-large, but then the ACC champion not get in at all? Because there's a world where Duke wins the league at 9-4, but is unranked, and they don't get in over like a 2 group of 5 teams, but Miami backdoors their way in as an at-large. That's just all kind of chaos. Because remember, Georgia Tech plays Pitt to end the season. Virginia plays Duke this week. So if Duke beats Virginia, Duke is in the ACC title game as of Saturday night if they were to beat Virginia at home. Louisville plays SMU. So these are the top 6 teams in the ACC all play each other, George. So what do we make of the crazy conference in general with this insane 7-team race down the stretch here with 3 weeks to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally a weird shakeout. Obviously, you came into the season and you kind of just thought ACC was almost like a 2-horse race with Clemson and Miami. And here we are, approaching mid-November, and neither team is really
or
anywhere
Florida State. Or
Florida State, obviously, yeah, too. I forgot about them. But, it's really it's a 4-horse, 5-horse race now with Miami and Louisville not even in the picture. Obviously, Clemson hasn't been in the picture since September. But yeah, it's weird just kind of the way it shapes out. Virginia with the loss to NC State, that's not a conference
Not a
loss.
conference loss, right?
And then Georgia Tech, obviously they have to play Georgia at the end of the year, so that's going to probably, assuming they lose that, which we can't really assume that, but saying they lose that game, it shouldn't hurt them, but it might hurt them, might hurt their at-large chances if they don't if they don't win the ACC here. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. I think that the worst case scenario, obviously, like you talked about, is if Duke were to somehow manage to win it at 9-4, and then you've got like a bunch of 2-3 loss ACC teams who have kind of all cannibalized each other, and there's really nowhere to look and say, yeah, these guys deserve to be in, because USF's having a great season, and then there's another G5 that I can't think of right
Madison
now.
is
JMU. Yeah, I think they're like ranked like 18th or 19th this week. So yeah, I mean it's weird because you just don't know, and obviously Miami is kind of the best bet for the at-large bid, but I mean their last 3 games are really tough. We highlighted this at the very beginning of the season. They were in Florida for the first 9 weeks or whatever it was, and then it's NC State at home, and then at Virginia Tech, and at Pittsburgh, and obviously Pittsburgh is now one of those premier games that came on kind of late in the year here with the young quarterback, the freshman quarterback. So it's really kind of a crapshoot. It is the best way to phrase it. I think that, to be honest, I think that it'll be a 1-bid league. I like Georgia Tech still. I think that's the best team that the ACC has right now. Hopefully, I don't know if you noticed this last night. I can't remember her name right now for the life of me, but she mentioned it talking about Georgia Tech, that they know the refs gave them an extra win.
Heather Dinich, yes.
Heather Dinich, that's the woman. But yeah, it just scares me a little bit when they say stuff like that, and Georgia Tech is kind of already here with, we're probably going to lose to Georgia, and then if they don't win the ACC, then that's a 3-loss team that made it to Charlotte and is going to get punished for making it to Charlotte, and also is having a hypothetical win taken away. So there's a lot of weird semantics that kind of go into it here. But I mean, if I had to guess, I'd like Georgia Tech, but I just who knows, man.
It's a total crapshoot. By the way, Duke is sitting here at 4-1. They control their own destiny, and they got a call gifted to them against Clemson that kind of saved the 4th and goal situation. So, so Duke is sitting here in a spot where it's like, if Duke wins out, they're going to Charlotte. And by the way, they have Virginia at home. Very winnable game. Virginia just lost at home to Wake Forest. So if Duke beats Virginia, their last 2 games, George, are Wake Forest and North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Those teams aren't very good. So Duke has a crystal clear path here to, I mean, a week ago I would have said, okay, there's no way Duke's going to win the conference at 9-4. First of all, they're not going to lose to UConn and then run the table in ACC play, but they did in fact lose to UConn. They are now 5-4, nowhere near being ranked. Obviously, if you're 5-4, you're not nearly being ranked, unless you play like a gauntlet schedule, which Duke has not played a gauntlet schedule. So if Duke wins out and goes to Charlotte and beats Georgia Tech, say, in a rematch, where they did lose to Georgia Tech earlier in the year.
Or Pitt, or whoever that is. Yeah.
Right, that's their only ACC loss, was that game at home to the Yellow Jackets. If they were to go into Charlotte and win and go to 9-4, I don't think they'd be ranked at 9-4. I mean, I really don't. I don't really see where the wins would be. I guess they'd beat Georgia Tech in the second time, but there's a world where the ACC would not get their conference champion in, and then you'd be hoping for a Miami as an at-large. Miami does have that big win over Notre Dame, which is aging very well, obviously. But Pitt also plays Notre Dame this week. So if Pitt's able to beat Notre Dame, then you could say Pitt could throw their hat in the ring as an at-large. And again, obviously, that game isn't huge for Pitt as far as ACC standings go, because it's not an ACC game, but Pitt ends with Georgia Tech and Miami. So Pitt's last 3 games are a gauntlet. They got Notre Dame, who's ranked in the top 10. They got Georgia Tech, who's ranked in the top 15. And they got Miami, who's ranked in the top 15. So they got 3 tough games in the season. Pitt controls their own destiny as far as at-large and ACC title games goes, because if they're 10-2, they're going to Charlotte, and they would have beaten Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami 3 straight weeks. So Pitt's got everything in front of them. The ACC is just crazy right now, George. It's literally insane. I think Miami's only path would be as an at-large. I can't see them getting in. That's why it was weird to me last night when they said Miami conference champion out of the ACC, because they put the little gold trim around their thing. I'm like, Miami's not going to win the ACC. They could get in the playoff, but they're not going to win the ACC. Like that's 2 different things. Like, you're supposed to do the 5 highest ranked conference champions, which Miami will not be. So I thought what they were going to do is Georgia Tech as the conference champion, because they at the season ended today, they'd be in the conference championship, and they'd be the highest ranked team in playing in that game. So I thought they'd give the nod to Georgia Tech, and then Miami would be the highest ranked at large, but they wouldn't get in because they get jumped by the teams that are actually playing in Charlotte. That's what I thought that would happen there. But there's still 3 weeks to see. And again, Pitt plays Miami, Georgia Tech plays Pitt. They all play each other, so it's gonna unfold. It's gonna play itself out. But it's just kind of a crazy thing where 3 weeks to go, 7 teams have a clear shot in the playoff, and no one's talking about like SMU being in the playoff. SMU could easily be in the playoff. All they have to do is beat Louisville at home, and they have a clear shot to Charlotte. Like it's pretty crazy. Louisville's last 2 ACC games are Clemson on Friday night at home, and then they have to play at Dallas against SMU. So again, it's just kind of like everyone has a path. Everyone has a clear shot to Charlotte. And if you get to Charlotte, you're one win away from possibly making the playoff, unless you're Duke. Then you might have to kind of cross your fingers, because it's kind of crazy that we're sitting here saying the ACC champion might not get in the playoff. But if Duke does win the ACC, that's probably on the table.
Mean, a 4-loss champion, it'd just be so hard to see it. The kind of the only thing that I think might be in Duke's favor here, and not even in their favor, is just like we talked about the amount of kind of top 15 cannibalism that we're going to see over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like you talked about Pitt. If Pitt's in the mix here, that means they probably beat Notre Dame, which means Notre Dame has 3 losses and they're probably out of the mix. I can't imagine a 3-loss Notre Dame without a conference championship buffer is going to be in. And then Texas plays Texas A&M, Ohio State, Indiana in that Big Ten championship game. Obviously, that none of them are going to drop. But you just don't know. Texas Tech is going to have to play one of Arizona State or whoever, BYU
or Arizona State, or
BYU in that Big 12 championship game. So I mean, Oklahoma's a very sneaky one. Vanderbilt's a super sneaky one.
Yes,
there's a bunch of teams that here that I just you can't rule out yet. And like we talked about the top of the show with Southern Cal and Michigan is if both these teams are 7-2. Michigan. Here's a little something that we haven't really talked about, right?
Yeah.
Michigan is 7-2. Could you tell me who Michigan has lost to?
They lost to USC and they lost to Oklahoma.
And how many? And that's only one Big Ten loss, right?
Only one Big Ten loss. So they control their own destiny to Indianapolis.
So what happens if Ryan Day, it's been a long time since he's beaten the Wolverines.
100%.
What happens if the Wolverines go out and they man it? And obviously Ohio State is the best team in the country this year based on every metric measurable. But who knows? I mean, there's a monkey on their back, obviously, with Michigan. And so who knows? Michigan goes in and beats Ohio State for the 5th straight year. Then they're in Indiana.
They're in Indianapolis
for the Big Ten championship. Indiana now is – and so Ohio State becomes another at-large that probably hurts another one of those kind of Vanderbilt, Utah, BYU, Oklahoma teams. And so there's just so much chaos to be had, and I love it. And so – I mean, coming on the stretch here, everyone, and myself included, that kind of was against this larger playoff because, it's not exactly what college football is made for. Right. Every time, we come down in November now, and that's 2 years in a row where it's just a really cool playoff picture. So,
but it's chaos, and I love chaos. It feels like with the extended playoff, maybe the formats are a little janky, whatever, but the amount of teams who are still, I mean, I counted.
It's just, I wish, the only thing I could say is I wish that the what's the word I'm looking for? The committee was done better. The committee's just it's so in the dark and it's so confusing on what's being valued. But
we really don't know.
It's not a perfect society.
The reason why Texas Tech wasn't ranked as higher than Georgia Tech and Alabama is because they struggled in the red zone offense. So we really don't know what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah,
so
if you're diving into the stats, I thought it was based on who wins the games.
I did too. It's all about taste. It's all about taste. Some people like some things. I don't know. But you mentioned Michigan. I want to get back to Michigan because they finished with Northwestern, Maryland, and then obviously the game against Ohio State. So Michigan
should at least have 9 wins.
They'll be 9-2 heading into that game. So that means if they beat Ohio State and they're a 10-win team and they get that game at home this year, that's in the Big House. So if Michigan beats Ohio State in the Big House, they're going to be 10-2.
And that's probably a guaranteed spot.
They're in
regardless.
If you beat Ohio State, that's the best win of the year right there. So you would be in. That would be taking a spot away from somebody else, possibly an ACC team, possibly an SEC team. And again, USC also 7-2. They finished the season against Iowa on Saturday. Then they have to go to Eugene and play Oregon, who's ranked, I believe, 8th in the country. So they have everything in front of them, too. If USC's 10-2, how are you going to leave out USC? They have a road loss at South Bend and then a last-second loss in Champaign against Illinois.
That's such a tough finishing schedule for them, because Iowa's playing some really good football this year.
I was playing really good. Yeah.
And you're kind of looking at an Oregon team where I'm probably more scared of Iowa than Oregon right now.
Yeah.
Just kind of based on, and Dan Lanning is terrifying kind of no matter when you face him. But that's tough for Southern Cal. I mean, they've got a kind of a murderer's row, and they can't really afford to lose any
Especially
of them.
Iowa's a tough matchup for them because Iowa wants to run the football, and USC has been struggling to stop the run.
And I heard the weather there this weekend is going to be terrible. They brought the rain with them, which is like kind of exactly.
Yeah, Iowa last week had terrible weather in Oregon, so they just going to bring it right with them.
They almost stole one against Oregon, which they probably should have had.
Probably should have had that one. Yeah, 100%. That was and I'm glad the committee didn't crush Iowa. They moved them down like one spot. They moved them down.
Yeah.
That was fair because I think Iowa was right there. They were playing right. It's probably a little bit better than Oregon in that game against a top 10 team. So I thought that was they're a ranked football. They're a ranked football team for sure.
Yeah, low 20s. Yeah, mid 20s. I'm not upset about that at all.
100%. They're ranked 21, I believe, and USC's ranked 17. So both those teams still have a path. Again, by my count, and I counted just who can get to their conference championship game or who still has a chance as an at-large. And I counted 29 to 30 teams, and then I put a half a team. I put 29.5, 30.5 if you count Tennessee, because Tennessee has no path to Atlanta. But if they end the season 9-3 and they beat Vanderbilt on the road, Would they possibly have a chance as a case as a 9-3 SEC team? I don't know. I'm not going to eliminate them yet.
That's a tough one, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
it's a tough one to sell, and they probably wouldn't get in. But if Tennessee's 9-3 and they win at Vandy, maybe there's a late push that they have. I mean, you saw last year South Carolina had a good end of the season, and people were like,
"Yeah,
hey,
those 9-3 SEC is pretty strong."
They have a shot. They have a case. So I didn't eliminate Tennessee, but there's like 29 to 30 teams that still have a legit shot to make the playoff. There's like 7 teams in the Big 12 that can still get to their conference championship game, which means that they would have a chance to make the playoff. And then the ACC, obviously, we know there's 7 teams that could literally. Miami's the 7th one that could get to Charlotte realistically. They still have a chance to get to Charlotte. So if you are a team that has a chance to win your conference championship, you're still alive, and it's mid-November now, George. So when there's 30 teams that are still vying for playoff spots and a 12-team playoff, that's good for the sport, I think. I did want to get to the SEC, though. We have a big week in the SEC, George. You mentioned Texas. Texas right now is 7-2. They're the last team in. They finished, though, at Georgia this Saturday at night in between the hedges, and then they also have to finish the season against Texas A&M on Black Friday. So they have 2 teams ranked in the top 5 still left on their schedule. If Texas goes 1-1 in those games, they'll be a 9-3 SEC team like we just talked about with Tennessee. But Texas would have real wins. They would have wins over Oklahoma in Red River. They would have a win over either Georgia on the road in Athens or against Texas A&M, who's ranked 3rd in the country, and you could probably argue they could be higher than that. So could Texas right now? Yeah, and they still have a win over Vanderbilt, 100% right. Yeah, so Texas would have a path at 9-3, probably a much better path than Tennessee.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to get at there, was that if we're going to compare 9-3 teams, Texas is going to get over Tennessee.
And they have the out-of-conference schedule. They scheduled Ohio State out-of-conference, which does not hurt them.
And they played Ohio State as well as anyone, better than anyone this year.
100%. A road loss at Ohio State is not going to hurt them at all. Maybe the Florida loss at the Swamp will hurt them, but I don't think the Ohio State.
It's a long time ago when you kind of get to the end.
Ago. Yeah, so I do want to talk about those 2 games. So Oklahoma goes at Tuscaloosa. Oklahoma's the first team out. That's a huge game on Saturday. Oklahoma, if they beat Alabama, they have a real shot at getting in the playoff at 10-2. Like Oklahoma would have as good a resume as anybody, beating Michigan in the non-conference. Obviously not beating Ole Miss, losing to Ole Miss and only losing to Texas. That the only 2 losses. That's pretty good. Beating Bama at Bama. So Oklahoma has everything right in front of them too. They have to play at Tuscaloosa, and then they finish with LSU, who obviously was supposed to be a really good win for them, but now LSU's kind of fallen by the wayside. But Oklahoma's got a real shot. Texas, obviously, those 2 teams play each other in Red River. Texas is the last team in as of today. Oklahoma's the first team out as today, but they both have to go on the road this Saturday at Alabama and at Georgia. So what do we think about those 2 games? And what do we think about the SEC race in general down the stretch here as we try to get jockey for spots here and jockey for some bids?
Yeah, the SEC is obviously, it's super fun. I've been so impressed with A&M, down the stretch. They played so incredibly well. Mike Elko's got that team humming right now. Yeah. But that wasn't your question. You talked about Texas and Oklahoma. And, I saw a few people were upset. I thought Texas was a little bit overrated. I think I'd agree, actually, that 10 was a little bit high. But, I mean, like you talked about, with the schedule that they play, it doesn't really matter because they're going to be tested in the upcoming 3 weeks here. So we'll know if they belong there or not. Yeah. But yeah, you saw them, they kind of escaped Vandy with the win. They escaped Kentucky with the win. Yeah. And so, Texas really has not impressed me as of late. And so we'll see kind of down the stretch how it lands. I think that 9-3, they'll probably have the best case of a 9-3 team. Yeah. Because there's a good chance they're 8-4, to be honest. I don't know if they
100%.
I don't know if I see them beating Georgia. I don't see them beating Georgia, in my opinion, in Athens. And then Texas A&M, that'll be a different game because assuming A&M's 11-0 there, it's obviously that game's never, you never take your foot off the gas. But with a guaranteed spot in the playoffs on the line, and maybe you're saying to yourself, I don't want to play in Atlanta because I don't want to get hurt. I don't know. I might be overthinking the room on that a little bit.
I know that's a real point. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of the way it's been shaken out lately. Like, obviously we saw last year SMU didn't get punished. They lost their conference championship to Clemson. They didn't get punished. They still got in. So hopefully that won't really matter. But, there's a lot of the kind of semantics that go into who's going to get in based on, we're comparing, we're almost having like bad wins. We talk about like that Vandy win and that Kentucky win, and it's like Texas has bad wins. And it's like, well, they won the game. It's an SEC game. Yeah. And it's like, especially when you're Texas, it's like every single game. And you can't really consider this when you're ranking teams, but every game you have a shot, you have the target on your back. It's their Super Bowl. When Texas comes to town, it's like game day's probably there. So it's going to be a tough one. I think of the 2, I like Texas a little more. Obviously, we saw him play Red River, and it wasn't particularly close. That wasn't a healthy John Mateer, but even then, I think I like Texas a little bit more.
That's probably the most impressive Texas. Yeah, that's probably the most impressive Texas has looked all year. You said they escaped Vandy. That was the most impressive full game that we saw Texas play all year.
Yeah, I mean, and Oklahoma they just kind of haven't ran the ball like I expected them to. I thought Jaden Ott's been a touch disappointing. Obviously, with Mateer being out for an extended period of time, you haven't been able to see him kind of complement their offensive game with his legs. So yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot here in this kind of 10 to 15 range, 10 to 20 range that is going to be so exciting to see play out. And the SEC, Texas, Oklahoma, Vandy, right smack in the middle of it. So I mean, if I had to pick, honestly, I don't think either of them are getting in. If I had to guess, I think both Texas and Oklahoma are probably going to find themselves on the outside looking in when it comes to the end of the month. So I mean, it's going to be tough to tell, but
you're probably right. By the way, Texas is ranked ahead of Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, obviously because they beat them head to head. So that's the reason why they're ranked as high as they are. We don't know if they're a top 10 good, but obviously they do have those wins over Oklahoma and over Vandy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just record-wise, you kind of have to put them there.
For sure. But the thing is, with Texas, like you said, there's meat on the bones of their schedule. If they're going to be underdogs against, obviously, Georgia on Saturday, and they'll probably be underdogs against A&M on Black Friday. So if they're 8-4, obviously they have no case. They're currently in right now. Oklahoma is going to be an underdog this week against Alabama. So if they both lose this weekend, which they're projected to, we don't know if they're going to, but if Texas and Oklahoma both lose this weekend, which they're expected to do, they are both touchdown underdogs, I believe. Then it's going to be a tough hill to climb back into the playoff picture at this point, especially when there's possible bids that might get stolen in the ACC or whoever knows. So Texas would have a good chance to, avenge a Georgia loss 2 weeks later on Black Friday against A&M. Oklahoma, if they lose to Alabama, it'd be tough to climb back to 9-3, assuming Texas also gets back to 9-3, because then you wouldn't have the edge over Texas because they lost head to head. They wouldn't really have the edge over. Notre Dame obviously is ahead of them with 2 losses, so if they both were to lose a game, you would assume that they'd still be ahead. So it's tough for me to envision Oklahoma getting in at 9-3 without a win at Bama. Like a win at Bama would be so huge for them, because I think their last 2 games it's LSU and I forget who the other one is, but it's not. I don't think there's enough meat left on their bones to get back into the race really. Whereas at least Texas has A&M left in their schedule, so if they do lose
Missouri as well,
Missouri. Okay. So, I mean, it'd be tough for them to get back in the picture right now. Missouri obviously just got unranked. Obviously A&M just, shellacked.
Still a real football team though. I think
still a real football team, 100%, no doubt. Yeah. And they run the football really well. But it would be tough for me. So you might be right. They might both miss, because if they both lose this weekend, again, there's not many spots left. I mean, right now you have the ACC champion possibly getting in. You have Michigan and USC as 2 lost teams that are behind them that have legit wins left on their schedule. Like we said, Michigan probably gonna be 9-2 heading into that Ohio State game. USC's got a real path as an at-large. Vanderbilt's still there. If Vanderbilt wins out, a 10-2 SEC team's gonna be hard to leave out.
I mean, it's Kentucky and Tennessee, 2 games I expect them to win.
Right, they're 8-2. Vanderbilt's 8-2. If they win 10 games, they got to be in.
And then another conversation is Utah, who is not going to play in that Big 12 championship game, correct, most likely. And then they've got Baylor on the road, and then both of the Kansas schools, which if they win those 3 games, 10-2 Utah, I don't see them getting left out either. So
the committee is telling you that Utah is going to get in if they win out. That's what they're telling, because they're ranked. They're the highest ranked 2-loss team outside of the SEC teams. And
they're right there next to BYU. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And BYU only has 1 loss, and BYU did beat Utah head to head. So if BYU loses another game, the committee's basically telling you we don't care that they beat Utah by 3 at home in the whole.
Because what have you done for me lately? Yeah,
exactly right. So if BYU was to slip up, by the way, BYU plays at Cincinnati in 2 weeks. Cincinnati's ranked 25.
25th. They're still sneaking, holding on.
They're still right there. They have a chance to get to the Arizona. They have a chance to get to Jerry's World for the Big 12 title game as well. So BYU's got a tough end of the season. If Utah can just win their road games at Baylor, is not easy, at Waco, and then obviously you got to go at Kansas in Lawrence to end the season, and then that sandwich game is Kansas State. So if Utah's 10-2, they have a legit shot as well. But there are no really easy, like the road Big 12 games are not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But it just feels like there's a lot left on the table to where it feels like if Texas and Oklahoma both do slip up this weekend, which again they're projected to, they're both playing at Georgia and at Bama. Those are the 2 toughest places to play, probably in the SEC outside of LSU and maybe A&M. But they have to go to those 2 teams, and if they lose, they'll both be 7-3 with only 2 games left to go. And you have, like you said, the Utahs still have a chance to get more wins. You have USC and Michigan still have a chance to get more wins. Obviously, you have Miami as an at-large that are sneaking there with only 2 losses and a win over Notre Dame. So there might not be enough pathway for the Red River teams to get back in it if they don't win this week. This is a huge week for both those teams. If just one of them can get a road win, a signature road win over a Georgia or a Alabama, that might just be enough to get them in the playoff. Like that would be a huge win for them to probably jump a Notre Dame, maybe jump an Oregon. Like that could put them solidify as a 2-loss team that's going to be in a 10-2, assuming they are able to hold off the rest of their schedule. And even if Texas loses on Black Friday, maybe that win at Georgia would be enough to hold them ahead of other teams. So it'll be very interesting. There's still, like I said, there's still some weeks left this is all going to play itself out. The November schedule in college football is so good that we're gonna find out who's worthy and not, because if you lose at this time of year, you don't really deserve to be in the playoff. We saw it last year with Miami. They were going to be in the playoff, and they lost to 21-0 lead to Syracuse in the last week of the season. They did not deserve to be in it. That's not large at that point. If you lose that late in the season, your at-large case is kind of cooked.
But kind of more so to that point, you see it now, and you see Notre Dame, and then you see Miami, who have the same record. They're both 7-2.
Correct.
And Notre Dame is ranked 6 places higher, even though Miami has that head-to-head win
in August.
Because it happened. That win happened in August, and then Notre Dame won, I think, like 6 or 7 in a row now.
Yeah.
And so, the craziest part to me, and I'm looking at the kind of rankings right here, I wouldn't be shocked, and you might disagree with kind of this first one, but I wouldn't be shocked if 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 don't make it. If Oregon, because Oregon's got a tough stretch. They've got USC and then at Washington. Texas, Oklahoma, we just talked about. Notre Dame's got to play Pitt. That's no gimme. And then BYU, I just don't think I see them. I don't think I see them beating Texas Tech, and I don't think whatever it is, 11-2 or 10-3 BYU is going to get in. And so to me, I think that we might see pretty much half the field just get nuked, and Utah, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, kind of, and then maybe an extra team from that.
And then one of USC, Michigan possibly could get in as an at-large in the Big Ten because one of these Big Ten teams is gonna be 10. Obviously, we know Indiana, Ohio State, they're in already. They're both in. They can kind of just.
I don't think there's a world. Yeah, there's no world where they don't.
Right. To put it in NFL standards, they've already clinched the playoff spot basically. So the other Big Ten teams that are up for grabs here is like a possible, because I think they're gonna get 3 or 4 bids. The Big Ten's probably gonna get 3 or 4 bids. Mm-hmm. Oregon has the inside track for the 3rd bid, and if they don't get it, that means there's probably 2 spots available for potentially a USC or a Michigan. Maybe only one of those
between probably USC and Michigan.
But Oregon, USC, and Michigan. Again, Oregon plays USC. USC already played Michigan and beat them. Now they have a chance to beat Oregon. If they beat both those teams, they're going to be in the playoff. And again, Oregon still has to go at Washington, so they have a chance to build their resume after just winning at Kinnick in Iowa. So one of those 3 teams at least is going to get in, possibly a second of those 3 teams. Again, if Michigan beats Ohio State, they're in. That's the best win of the season. So Michigan controls their own destiny probably because you're not going to leave out a 10-2 Michigan. There's no
not
way.
With that win, no way.
Not with that win at Ohio State, 100%. So Oregon, if they beat USC, they're in. But
here's my question: and I think Oregon is pretty much the safest of the ones that I kind of discussed here. But you mentioned USC, and if USC beats Oregon, they're probably in. But what if they lose to Iowa the week before? Because they got Iowa first and then USC, and like we talked about that Iowa game, it's with some bad weather coming up this weekend. And Iowa's playing good football. They've been in every football game it seems like I've seen them play, based on going back into like September. So if they lose to Iowa, beat Oregon, and then UCLA, assume they win that, who knows? 9-3 USC with a win over Oregon and a win over Michigan, and then there's just so much chaos. I want all the chaos. I want Michigan to win. I want USC to win, because how do you even weigh that? Oh my God! Like I don't think a 9-3 USC would get in because of the timing in which, if they were to lose to Iowa this Saturday, I just don't think it's enough. Yeah, that Oregon win just becomes like almost an afterthought if they were.
And then the UCLA game at the end of the year is not good enough to be a lasting impression in our minds, especially if Michigan beats Ohio State. It's like, okay, well, UCLA won their rivalry game, but it's like, who cares at this point? I know they beat Michigan.
Yeah, but we'll be discussing how USC beat Michigan.
We will. You're absolutely right. But then
hey, did you guys forget that, by the way?
2 months ago they beat Michigan, but then obviously our lasting impression will be Michigan beating Ohio State. So it might just be a little bit like, obviously Notre Dame lost to Miami in August, but no one remembers that anymore because Notre Dame's playing better football. Miami's not playing as well football. So I think the when you lose is a big thing here. And if USC loses this week, it's almost too close to the edge line here. You're almost cutting it too close to lose this close to the end of the season. As an at-large, if you lose right now, it would be tough for me to give you a spot at this point, and especially if Michigan has a win over Ohio State. I almost would be like, okay, yes, I understand the head-to-head happened, but if Michigan beats Ohio State and you don't win against Iowa at home, I have to maybe make a tough decision and leave you out, even though the head-to-head does matter. But again, it's just so chaotic, and it's going to play itself out. It's going to be super fun. I mean, something's going to happen here. There's going to be maybe Vanderbilt loses to Kentucky, and everything gets flipped upside down. We don't know what's going to happen. So a lot of things that can still play out. And I'm just very excited to see what happens, because this Saturday is going to be really good, George. It's going to be a really, really fun Saturday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it feels like every Saturday, just kind of the rest of the way, it's just going to be every result has huge implications, which is, it's going to be so fun, like you said. So, I mean, I can't wait. It's going to be close. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about some NFL.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome back. Let's talk about some NFL action, George. Obviously, we did miss last week, but the playoff picture is starting to kind of, it's starting to crystallize a little bit. We're starting to see, some teams that are separating from the pack. We can start in the AFC here. We got the Broncos, Colts, and Patriots are all 8-2. They're the only 8-win teams in the league right now. Denver, Indy, and New England. Who would have saw that coming 3 months ago? I know we were doing our over-unders, and we were like, the Colts stink. Broncos, the Patriots will be better, but they won't be 8-2. So this is pretty crazy. The Bills coming off a high, beating Kansas City. That was possibly like, again, every Buffalo Kansas City game is like the game of the year. Buffalo
regular season, it's like the same story
every same story. Buffalo wins the regular season, they lose in the playoff. So they win the regular season again. Allen was good. They turn around and lose to my Dolphins. Go figure. So the AFC is kind of like a total crapshoot right now, George. I don't know what to make of the conference. I still think Buffalo and Kansas City and Baltimore are the three most talented teams, but the records are the records. I mean, it's hard to argue with the 8-2 teams. Denver, they're winning. It's not very impressive because Bo Nix can't complete a forward pass, but they are winning games. Indianapolis, Daniel Jones starting to look a little bit more human. He was obviously like a immortal the first 9 weeks, and obviously he had the 5 turnovers against the Steelers and then the 2 turnovers last week. But Jonathan Taylor is so unbelievable. He might be the MVP of the league right now if it wasn't a quarterback award. Indianapolis is 8-2. They basically have the AFC South locked up, and then the Patriots are the biggest surprise of the year, in my opinion. I mean, 8-2. I know the schedule is kind of nothing, and I saw the schedule before the year started, so I was like, okay, they'll probably win 8 or 9 games, but they already have 8 wins, and they still have the Jets twice in their schedule, so they're going to win more than 8 games. But they already have 8 wins. The Patriots are really, really good. They're a legit squad, and all that is, I think, Mike Vrabel, because I still think the roster is a year ahead of schedule. But nonetheless, those teams are all in the picture right now. Jacksonville and Buffalo, and the Chargers have wild cards. Chiefs are the 5-14 that is out right now. So what's our overall thoughts on this AFC, this kind of wonky conference?
Yeah, the AFC, I mean, it's been so confusing. Obviously, I mean, you talked about the surprises. I mean, honestly, Indy, Denver, and New England and Pittsburgh leading their divisions this far into the season was totally not on anyone's bingo card. But yeah, I think that, I mean, of the AFC, I mean, hard to say anyone's playing better than the Patriots right now.
Yeah.
There's a team that their 2 losses were it's the Steelers and it's the Raiders. I believe, in like week 1 and week 3. And then since then they've been pretty much perfect. And you could argue that Steelers game, they turned it over 5 times. They should have won that one. So yeah, I know we talked about it. The schedule was pretty easy, but you still got to go out and win the games. It's still the NFL, and they haven't played the Jets yet. So like you said, you still got 2 more games. 2 wins that you feel pretty confident about. But yeah, the Bills have just been so confusing. They play great, then they play poorly, and then the Kansas City Buffalo game kind of always feels like it's almost separate from
bigger
the
than regular season.
Bigger than the regular season, and it's like the teams kind of they leave all their trends behind and they just kind of play a separate game, and then they go back. Like you said, the following week they go lose by 3 scores to Miami, and Miami plays one of the best defensive games I've seen them play in a few years
ever.
So it's just been a pretty confusing year for the AFC. And then it's kind of the way it lays out now, I still think with Lamar getting healthy and Joe Burrow getting healthy, the AFC North is wide open.
Totally.
I don't really trust Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. That defense has been pretty inconsistent this season.
Very inconsistent. Yeah.
Outside of that Indianapolis game where they were able to kind of just stunt them and really put up an impressive shout against that strong Colts offense. But yeah, I mean, the AFC, like you said, you kind of feel like Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, the most talented rosters, but you still you just don't know. And if Indianapolis or someone, kind of an underdog gets that bye through and gets that home field advantage with the bye through the playoffs, if you're staying hot and Drake May stays healthy throughout the season here, you just don't know what the Patriots might do. You don't know what anyone might do. So yeah, I think the AFC is going to be kind of a lot of fun. NFC we'll get to in a second, also pretty much wide open, it feels like, this season. But yeah, the picture's definitely taking shape a little bit. And we've got some teams like Houston, Baltimore, Kansas City.
They're just hovering.
They're hovering. Yeah. Kansas City turned on a little bit there, but then that loss to Buffalo definitely stung them, and they had the bye, so they kind of are collecting right now. But yeah, there's a lot of 8, 9, 10, 11 going on that are very much hovering, and I think we're going to see kind of as the last 6 or 7 games go here, we're going to kind of see guys flip into gear, and we're going to get some good playoff race.
Yeah, Kansas City, by the way, plays at Denver this week on Sunday, so they have a chance right now. They're 2 games behind Denver in the loss column. They play Denver 2 more times, again, starting on Sunday at Mile High, and then they also play them again on Christmas in Arrowhead. It feels like the Chiefs always play on Christmas nowadays, so that just might be their thing.
They're always on primetime.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll have that in front of them. It feels like the AFC is completely wide open. The whole league is wide open right now. You even mentioned the NFC, which we'll get to, totally wide open. If I was to guess right now, I think Jacksonville probably falls out of that current wild card spot they're in via the head-to-head win over Kansas City. I think Kansas City's going to get in the playoffs. They do, again, like I said, finish with Denver twice. They still have the Chargers one more time, but at home in Arrowhead. They have the Colts here in 2 weeks, but again, it's at Arrowhead. So the Chiefs have a lot of these tough games coming up at home where they'll have a chance to make up ground, and I think they will. The AFC North, like you said, is wide open right now. Pittsburgh's kind of falling back to the pack. Baltimore's coming back up with Lamar being healthy. Burrow's possibly ahead of schedule. He might be coming back here soon. Bengals have some winnable games on the stretch, so maybe they're still in it. Again, Pittsburgh is 5-4, Baltimore's 4-5, and the Bengals are 3-6. All 3 of those teams are separated by 2 games. and they all play each other down the stretch. Bengals still play the Ravens twice. Ravens still play the Steelers twice. So they all play each other down the stretch. Pittsburgh plays Cincinnati this Sunday. So it's all right in front of them from the AFC. Again, I think right now it'd be tough for me to pick still against Kansas City or Buffalo for that matter. But if Indianapolis is running the ball the way they're doing it, heck, Allen and Mahomes might just be spectators the whole game because the way that the Colts are running the football right now with Jonathan Taylor, it feels like every week he's going for 200 yards. It's really impressive stuff. It just really comes down to, do you trust Daniel Jones in a playoff game 3 weeks in a row or possibly 2 weeks in a row if they get a bye? But Denver, again, I have reservations about Bo Nix right now with passing the football. Again, it's not a complicated. I mean, it's a complicated offense with Sean Payton, but it's a lot of easy completions are there. They're just not really being made until the fourth quarter when they're down 17 points every week. It feels like so. I mean, Bo Nix in the fourth quarter is really good, but in the first 3 quarters, there's a lot to be desired there. Patriots are legit, but again, a lot of weak teams on their schedule. They also play, like I said, the Jets twice. They still get to play. Who's on their schedule left? They get the Giants, the Bengals, the Jets,
Dolphins, I think, again.
Dolphins. Yeah, exactly. And they've already played the Falcons, Browns, Titans, Saints, Panthers. So they've played a lot of bad teams. So how legit are the Patriots? I don't know, but I did see them win at Buffalo, and I just saw them win at Tampa Bay. Those are 2 really impressive road wins. Not to make it sound like college football, but those are on the resume. That's an impressive schedule. I mean, those are impressive wins. But I still think Buffalo, if they were to play them again, I think Buffalo. It just depends on which week you're going to get Buffalo. It feels like they stubbed their toe because they were overlooking the Dolphins and they were off a high on the Kansas City game. But I think if you get them against a team that's at their level talent-wise, you're going to see Buffalo rise to the occasion. Usually Allen does, but they do have some serious issues defensively, stopping the run. I know Carolina ran for like almost 200 against them. We ran for almost 200 against them. Teams have been able to run on Buffalo, and Buffalo's dealing with a lot of injuries defensively too. We'll get to Washington too, but they have a lot of injuries on their defense side of the ball. But the Bills are starting some practice squad guys on defense because they have a lot of injuries. And then again, Allen, it feels like Allen has to do everything himself against. We're back to the superhero Allen show because the receivers just aren't creating separation. Keon Coleman's now in year 2. He still kind of can't get open. Shakir and all the other guys. Kincaid is now out. He got injured last week in Miami. So it feels like Buffalo is really needing another. They needed a deadline receiver that they just didn't get. But in the AFC, maybe you don't need it. And it's just such it's a wide open conference, and it's still like I still prefer Allen and Mahomes over any of these other guys. Again, it's weird to see that Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Aaron Rodgers, and Drake May are leading the division. It's just that's a little weird to me. And then the wild cards could be Herbert, Allen, and Mahomes. Like I would prefer all those wild card teams just because the quarterbacks. Like that's how I would go in a playoff game thinking, because usually in playoff games, if you have the better quarterback, you have a good chance of winning. So it's just very, very strange to me how the AFC is through 10 weeks. I do think, like you said, the last 6 weeks here, the last 7 weeks, we're going to know a lot because I think Kansas City's going to start to turn it on now. Kansas City off a bye. We talked about how good Andy Reid is off a bye. They have Denver this week in Mile High. If Kansas City goes in there and wins, things will start to make a little bit more sense. If Denver wins, though, at home, they officially have a 3-game lead in the division. The division's wraps at that point. Like Kansas City will not be able to catch Denver if Denver straight up beats them head-to-head and takes a 3-game lead with 6 to go. There's just no way the Chiefs will be able to catch them, especially considering the Broncos play the Chiefs again, or the Broncos play the Chargers again. So one of them's going to get another win. So we could be looking at a Chiefs wild card if they don't win this Sunday. So there's a lot of interesting stuff left on the table, but just what a wild crapshoot of a conference AFC. It just makes no sense. It's literally a weird conference this year.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just hit the nail on the head right there. I was going to say, the top of the conference kind of has the middle of the pack quarterbacks.
Right.
In a 1-game season, which is what the playoffs are, you probably want Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, obviously, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
You want these guys who are going to win MVP awards, who are going to carry your team. But over the course of a season, it's the offensive coordinator, it's the offensive line, it's the blocking, it's who stays healthy. So you kind of see, and we see it with Kansas City, kind of like you talked about. They've dug themselves this hole kind of to start the year, where if they don't, it's almost like you said, it's almost do or die against Denver, and it's only week 11. Yeah, exactly. So the health thing is kind of, like you said, it's a crapshoot. You can't really control that. You got teams like the Ravens who are kind of just getting vultured by their injuries.
Yeah.
And so as we kind of get to the end here, though, like you said, you're going to trust the guys who have done it before. I think that if Kansas City loses this, though, and moves to 5-5 with that loss to Jacksonville, it's not just an uphill battle for the division; it's an uphill battle for the playoffs.
Yes,
which some of the really good records that we have, we've got 3 8-win teams already, 7 wins for the Chargers, who are also in their division.
Buffalo has the head-to-head over them too.
Buffalo has the head-to-head. Chargers already beat them once as well, I believe.
Jacksonville,
and I think they have to play again. So yeah, I mean, there's just, and then Baltimore's getting healthy. So I mean, it's gonna be a long kind of uphill season the rest of the way for the Chiefs here. But like you said, if Burrow gets healthy, you just don't even know. What are they going to do with Flacco when Burrow comes back? I mean, so many question marks up and down the AFC, and so because of that, every week's going to be really exciting throughout kind of the rest of the season here.
100%. The NFC, I think, is more interesting. I just think there's better teams. They're at the top. I know their teams are good.
Sure.
Seattle is bludgeoning teams, George. I don't know if anyone's been watching Seattle last few weeks. They obviously what they did to your Commanders a week prior. I think it was 35-0 before you could blink. The Cardinals, it was 28-0 before I even sat down and watched it. I mean, it was
the Cardinals one was it was crazy.
It was over before the game even started. I mean, that game was totally it was wraps. So Seattle is just bludgeoning teams. Like I said, the Rams, I think, are the most complete team in the NFC. Right up there with the Eagles. I think the Rams are really, really good.
That red zone offense is unbelievable. Devontae Adams and Kuka with the 2 running backs. I mean,
Stafford's had 4 touchdowns and 0 picks 3 weeks in a row. I mean, just unprecedented stuff. He's playing out of his mind. The Eagles got a big win on Monday night against the Packers. Kind of a dud game.
They still feel like they haven't clicked yet.
They haven't. They can't run the ball very well with Saquon. They still can't run the ball very well. That's again on another game for the Eagles where they run for less than 60 yards. That's gonna. You figure that'll change eventually. But they are still winning games. That's the Eagles for sure. They can just win games any different way. So those 3 teams are all 7-2: Rams, Seahawks, and Eagles. The Rams play the Seahawks this Sunday at 4:05 on Fox. Winner gets outright first place heading into week 12 and heading into Thanksgiving probably. That's a huge game this Sunday. Again, I think Seattle and LA are both really, really good. The 49ers, I think I'd put them in the conversation, but they're so injured. Like we said, a lot of it is injury based. A lot of it is health based. And the Rams and Seahawks are healthier than the 49ers. And obviously we just saw the Rams kick the 49ers in the teeth. Obviously still having without Brock Purdy, still having without Juwan Jennings, or not without
Jennings is healthy. But
Jennings is healthy. Pearsall's not healthy, but without Fred Warner, without Bosa, it's just a lot of injuries for the Niners. Obviously, he had Kittle come back a few weeks ago, but still, he was out for a few games. So the Niners have a lot of injuries. It feels like the Rams and Seahawks are fighting for possibly the 1 seed and definitely for the NFC West crown on Sunday. The Eagles and Lions play Sunday Night Football. George, that'll be really interesting. The Lions are playing better football now. Dan Campbell has taken over play calling duties against obviously your Commanders last week. We saw how that went. They play the Eagles in what we thought would be an NFC Championship game last year, possibly preview, but it feels like we're getting a little bit of like a divisional round NFC football weekend this week with Lions, Eagles, and Seahawks, Rams. Those might be the 4 best teams in the conference. I know Green Bay and Tampa Bay might have something to say, but those 4 teams are playing really good football.
Yeah, I agree. And Green Bay certainly has been pretty disappointing as of late, to be honest.
Offensively,
I mean, you kind of look at this picture and unfortunate, and I know I gave them some love, and then they backed me up right after. But the Panthers, it kind of feels like the clear cutoff for the playoff race in the NFC here.
Yeah,
maybe Minnesota, they're right next to them there. Maybe they kind of have something left in the bottle. But like you talked about, look at Seattle and kind of Los Angeles. Obviously, Philly's in it as well for the race for that 1 seed. But Seattle, LA kind of reminds me of that divisional last year, that Vikings, Lions. Yes. 2 just really good teams with those solid quarterbacks.
Darnold,
and I was going to say Sam Darnold finds his way back in the mix with another really good regular season team. I will toot my own horn a little bit here. If you remember our preseason rankings, there was someone who was high on the Seahawks. And,
you were high on the Seahawks. I was not.
So I had some love for the Seahawks.
Yes.
But I mean, I also had love for the Commanders. So I mean, there's you live and you learn here. But it's just kind of is what it is, And credit to the Bears. I've been really impressed with them. They came out of the bye. They took one off us that they deserved to win, and they really haven't looked back. And that offense, I think Caleb Williams is like the highest rated QBR in the sport or something this year. So
yeah, he's been very clutch.
Credit to Caleb and Ben Johnson kind of getting ready to right that ship a little bit. But yeah, to me it feels like that Carolina is kind of a clear playoff spot out, and then one of San Francisco or Chicago, maybe even Green Bay with kind of the way they played lately is probably going to get left out of the playoff here as that odd man out in the NFC.
It's those 3 teams fighting for 2
exactly. Yeah. And if Green Bay doesn't turn it around here, it could very well be them based on kind of what I've seen. They just haven't scored. And seen it in all 3 of their losses. They've been inside of 15 points. That's insane. The Browns and Panthers game, which felt like almost watching the exact same game.
Literally.
And then that Eagles game was just bad football, unfortunately. Great defense, but it was just, the tripping thing with Micah and Saquon. It was just not pretty. But yeah, the NFC it feels like the top is just loaded from Philly through Tampa and LA. And then kind of that middle part, we got a lot of strays, a lot of lingering. So
the conference is separating itself a little bit from the top. You can see it
100%.
Yeah, like you saw the cutoff line right there is at like 9. The teams underneath Carolina have almost no, like maybe Minnesota, but other than that,
other than Minnesota, I don't really look at any of those teams as
no one behind them has enough ground to make up and probably catch anyone. So it's probably 9 teams here fighting for 2 spots. I do think, by the way, the Green Bay, you mentioned it, their losses, 13-10 loss at Cleveland, 16-13 loss against Carolina, almost the same game.
Yeah, felt like watching the same game.
And then a 10-7 loss at home against Philadelphia. So back-to-back weeks where they lose at home, scoring a combined 20 points. Yeah, 16-13 and 10-7. So they've scored a combined 20 points, 13 against Carolina and 7 against Philly. They're just not scoring. They're not scoring enough points. So it's tough for me to say in a playoff game, which we saw last year against Philly in the wild card round. They just didn't score enough. I think they lost 22-10. They haven't been able to score enough points, and that's kind of been the issue. You don't know which Jordan Love you're going to get. You don't know if the pass catchers are really elevated. I mean, they have a lot of nice receivers, but they don't have like a number one dominant guy.
That's kind of always been the book on the Packers as of late. I mean, I don't love Romeo Doubs. I really like Romeo Doubs. Matthew Golden, another one of those guys. I'm a fan of. Dontavian Wicks, he's solid. Jalen Reed, he's solid.
They're all solid.
I'm saying guys who are like, you don't, and obviously this isn't how you measure talent, but you don't really want him on your fantasy team because you don't know he's not going to get 10 targets. He's not going to score a touchdown. And then Josh Jacobs hasn't been healthy, so obviously that, of course, he's kind of the cog that makes it all go. If you've watched that Packers offense really throughout the season, he's their offense. He's going to run the rock. He's going to bounce off tackles. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield. So he kind of is their Christian McCaffrey kind of do everything kind of guy. And so hasn't been healthy, and so you kind of see him suffer. And that defense, it's very talented, but still very young. They get penalized a good bit. LaFleur still hasn't really shown that he's able to win kind of in that next level. So, the Packers, they're the young. I think they're the youngest team in the sport. Yeah. So, this isn't exactly their window by any means. But, I mean, everyone talks about, Jordan Love, age 27, Super Bowl thing, all the Packers quarterbacks. So
Aaron Rodgers.
You'd like to see a little bit more of a step from him. But, as long as they find a spot in the playoffs, they probably feel all right. But I mean, with the way they started, I think they were 4-1-1 or 5-1-1.
5-1-1. Now they're 5-3-1.
Yeah, they're 5-3-1. 2 back-to-back losses. It's just not what you want.
Well, they've been the most disappointing team, I feel like, in the NFC for me. I know the Commanders have had a lot of injuries.
Yeah,
but Green Bay was supposed to be like a surefire. I mean, they were getting Super Bowl.
Through 3 weeks, they were
they were the Super Bowl team. Yeah, through 2 weeks, it's like, okay, just hand the trophy to Green Bay right now.
We got fooled a little bit.
A little bit of fool's gold because they have been kind of anemic offensively. They play the Giants this week, George. After that, they have divisional games against Minnesota, at Detroit, Chicago. So 3 straight divisional games. Then they got to go at Denver. Then they got to play at Chicago, and then they have to play the Ravens with the healthy Lamar. And then they end the season at Minnesota. So that's not a walk in the park. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, that division is just,
They got to play. I guess what I'm saying. They still got to play Minnesota twice. They still got to play Chicago twice. Those are 2 legit teams, and they have to play at Detroit. They already played Detroit once in the opening game of the season. They have to play at Detroit now. They have to play at Chicago, obviously. They have to play at Denver. They have to play Baltimore, who's better now. So Green Bay's got an uphill battle for sure. They are the last playoff spot as of today. Chicago, you did hint at it, though. Chicago right now, George, could be first place. I mean, Detroit plays at Philly. They'll probably be underdogs in that game. I believe they are underdogs in that game by 2.5 points. So if they lose at Philly, Chicago, if they just win at Minnesota this week, they'll be in first place heading into late November, which is kind of crazy. But the Bears are playing better football. Caleb Williams back-to-back game-winning drives at Cincinnati and then against the Giants. So the Bears are right there. The Bears might sneak in there and make a playoff spot, even though maybe the roster again is not. I mean, the roster's fine, but I think Ben Johnson's kind of squeezing out a little bit more than
I don't think we're thinking that they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. I mean, they've had some close wins against some. You just kind of talked about not the Bears, the Bengals,
and the
Giants, the Commanders. These are, and obviously I love the Commanders, but this is a team that's just been unhealthy. So I think the Bears have been very impressive for kind of what they're expected to be this season. They're ahead of schedule, I'd say.
Yeah, I do think in the NFC, just real quick to end here, I think Philadelphia and I think Rams, Seattle are the 3 teams I'm thinking about right now in the NFC. Obviously, those are the 3 7-2 teams. I think Detroit is as good as any of those teams on a given Sunday. And then
the Penei Sewell injury does intrigue me. That was last week. I don't know if that's long term, but continue.
But I do, I do agree though that Detroit's right there too. If Detroit's still got everything in front of them too, if they win at Philadelphia this week, they can. First of all, they're probably the favorites to win the division, so that means they're going to get at least a home playoff game. And we'll see what happens with Seattle and the Rams, who play each other twice. So Detroit could easily be a top 2 seed. They could still be the number 1 seed. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. I still like Tampa Bay. I love the Tampa Bay, but obviously a lot of injuries. They still are without Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and Bucky Irving. So a lot of pass catchers, a lot of skill guys are there without the Bucs. So I think it's NFC. It's starting we're starting to get a better picture here. I think we know who's good. Obviously, Philadelphia, the Rams have played twice since January, and they've both been epic games in Philadelphia. So I think the Rams and Eagles are head honchos over everybody. And I think Seattle and Detroit are right there too, and the Bucs and the Packers and the Bears, maybe even San Francisco might have something to say, but it feels like those 8 teams we know. We know those 8 teams in some
almost
order.
Almost a perfect cutoff, yeah.
Exactly. It's almost a perfect cutoff. And I think we can even split them into tiers if we want to, really. So I think the NFC, we know, okay, these teams are going to be there in January. The AFC, it's like, well, Baltimore's 4-5, but I like them more than this 8-2 team. It's very weird. It's very strange how I almost prefer Baltimore in a one-and-done situation over Denver. I don't know. It's so
4-5 back against the wall, Baltimore.
Yeah, 4-5 Baltimore in the AFC North, which is so wonky and wide open against 8-2 teams that are like, do we trust 8-2 teams that with their quarterback situation? Who knows? But I do want to. We can end with our team story. I mean, heck, this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want. We play. It's Commanders Dolphins. It's Sunday morning. If anyone wants to get up and watch it, I mean,
I'll be up. I'll be watching.
I'll be watching it. But for the casual fan, maybe people skip out.
Definitely want to sleep through if you're not a
Dolphins or Commanders fan. You might may take the week off on this one. But it is the 9:30 a.m. game on the East Coast here, which we'll be up and watching it. It's the 3-7 Dolphins coming off their Super Bowl against Buffalo. I can say that because
Super Bowl win. That is.
We won the Super Bowl. We did it. First time in 50 years. We beat Buffalo. So that was our legitimate. Like, it's funny, but it's like we're unashamed. We beat Buffalo. That's like huge for us. Washington defense played great. They did play great. Washington is 3-7. They have lost, I believe, 4 in a row now, dating back to
might be 5.
Yeah, Bears, Cowboys, Chiefs, Seahawks, and then Lions. Yeah, so it is a 5-game losing streak. They were 3-2 after that win against the Chargers. They have kind of fallen from grace with the injuries on defense, and specifically the injury to their quarterback, Jaden Daniels. That's the big one here because even with him playing, I wouldn't have written them off at 3-6. I would have been like, okay, maybe they have a chance to beat Detroit with Jaden Daniels. He beat him last year in the divisional round. Maybe they can get to 4-6 and maybe have a chance down the stretch here. But without him, obviously they lose big to Detroit, and now it's over. 3-7. There's really no path back. So 2 teams that are not going to make the playoffs this year, George. But it's our teams. We got to talk about it. I mean, what are our thoughts on what are our expectations for this game on Sunday morning?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head, like you said. This is a Commanders team that's just severely injured.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin not expected to play. Noah Brown obviously not expected to play. The defense has been very poor.
Ravished.
But and then the Dolphins obviously they just got rid of Jalen Phillips, which was hard to see. I mean, he's one of those really talented linebacker, second level guys. So you talked about it. It's I mean, if anything, the Dolphins have been playing really for their standard and well lately. They obviously just beat the Bills. Defense played as good as I've seen. Achane, we talked about it a little bit off there, but he's projected like 1,000 fantasy points this week, and it's probably too low to be honest.
Right.
But I mean, it's just one of those games that beginning the season when everyone's healthy. You got Tyreek Hill, you got Tua coming off.
We thought it'd be a great game.
They thought it'd be a great game. We taled about this, a full year ago. I remember talking to you about it. Like, hey, they just announced us we're playing in Madrid. But it's just one of those things where and kind of get into the Jaden Daniels thing. He's been a little bit disappointing, not disappointing, I'd say, but definitely a step behind what he was expected to be coming off that amazing rookie season. And so it's just one of those things where you got to recognize that you're probably going to take a step back, kind of regroup. I don't know what the future looks like for Cliff Kingsbury. I've heard him tied to some head coaching jobs. I've heard him being talked about in the college circle again with all these great openings there. I just don't know what it means. But I just think that it's a spot where we kind of loaded up the defense with some older guys. Von Miller. Obviously, we brought back Bobby Wagner. Some of these old guys who thought we're going to shore up some holes, and it's just a team that wasn't quite ready to compete yet. Obviously, the injuries hurt that, but I think that we're in very different spots. I think that for the Commanders, obviously you like the core, but I think the rebuild is coming. For the Dolphins, I'm not exactly sure what the future looks like with Mike McDaniel.
I don't either.
I mean, I think he's a genius offensively. I think that he can go out and score 70 points. We've seen him literally do it before. But you just kind of see a team that sometimes plays a little bit uninspired. So you got two teams here who are kind of battling some off the field stuff just as much as the on the field stuff. So it'll be fun to see them just kind of slug it out. Hopefully there's just a 50 to 60 game, just a million points.
Hopefully it's a fun game, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Both teams are 3-7. Yeah, you did mention Jaden Daniels. It goes to show you that progression is not linear. He started off unbelievably rookie year, one of the best rookie seasons of all time, and we kind of expected this is natural growth, natural progression would say that he's going to be even better. And that just generally it doesn't happen all the time like that. I mean, I still think
it's hard to be good in the NFL. So hard.
Of course, I still think he's really, really good. But okay, a little bit of setback here. That's fine. That's kind of natural in the NFL when you have a career year, even if it didn't happen right away. Like say his career year was in year 3. I would have expected a little bit of a setback in year 4. That's just kind of naturally, regression candidates happen around the league. I mean, heck, Baker threw 40 touchdowns last year. He's on pace for 29 this year. He's still playing really good football, but the numbers aren't going to be, what they were last year. So
not a
that's
straight line.
totally,
It's just not a straight line.
exactly right. It's not a straight line and the NFL is weird every year. I mean, heck, Daniel Jones was out of a job a year ago today, and now he's
probably going to get a
that's what I'm saying.
9-figure contract.
Exactly right. So for the Dolphins standpoint, they have not lost the locker room, which is very key to me because 2-7, you could mail in the season. You could be like, all right, we don't want to fight for McDaniel anymore. His job, his seat is very warm. We could just be like, you know what, we don't really want him. And also, the Dolphins did not go full fire sale. We did see the Jets kind of just unload everybody. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
The Saints kind of had a soft tank as well. The Dolphins traded Dalen Phillips, yes, but they were not able to move Bradley Chubb. They were not able to move Minka Fitzpatrick. They had guys that they could have sold. I mean, heck, Waddle was in trade talks as well. They didn't fire sale everybody, so they still have some talented players in the roster. No doubt about that. Washington, obviously, we know still has talented players in the roster. They're just so injured, it feels like it's not even the same team that we saw last year. The Dolphins, obviously, without Tyreek Hill, still without 2 offensive line starters, but the offensive line's actually been playing better. Tua, you never really know every week you're going to get with Tua. Obviously, he was really good against Atlanta in the game I went to a couple weeks ago, and then beat Buffalo for the first time, and he's now 2-9 against Buffalo. So I don't know. Maybe the Dolphins coming off of their Super Bowl are maybe a little bit come back down to earth a little bit because I don't think they're going to play as well as they did defensively last week against the Bills. They shut out the Bills through 3 quarters. I mean, I was shocked as everyone was probably watching that game. Washington still got a squad there, so it should be a good game. Miami's favored by 2.5. The over under is 47.5. Might go over that. So I mean, it should be interesting. I
definitely expect the over to be hit, but I usually just don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Miami's defense will be as dominant as it was last week, but
you'd be surprised. I mean, the Commanders, they came out running the ball unbelievably well through 5 weeks. After that Chargers game, it was like we can run the ball on anyone, and then you saw 5 weeks of just. It was like I don't know if we had over 100 yards rushing in any of those games. So you just kind of just don't know. Obviously, with the injuries, Marcus Mariota is a complete wild card out there.
Right,
he's going to throw the ball to the defense at least 3 times. So it'll be a fun little 9:30 a.m. kind of little wake up football. It'll be good.
Yeah, Mariota and Tua also went to the same high school in Hawaii.
Oh, I didn't know that. Very cool.
Yeah. So by the way, this would have been Tua's played Dylan Gabriel in, I believe, week 7 or 8 against the Browns, and they both went to the same high school in Hawaii. So this is now the second time he's facing a former Hawaiian quarterback
from his high school,
from his own high school. It feels like everyone goes to St. Louis High School.
Was Tua a Heisman too? Did he win the Heisman?
He was not. He was a runner-up to Kyler Murray, I believe.
Kyler Murray, yeah.
Kyler won it that year, and then the following year, obviously Burrow won it, and Tua got injured in that game against.
2020 was Smitty. That's
2020 was Smitty. So yeah, no, Tua did not win the Heisman, but he was a runner-up, and Mariota obviously has won a Heisman. So we have.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to do, the Heisman thing.
100%. We had another one of those things, but yeah, Tua, Mariota. Obviously, there's ties to high school. They're both Hawaiian. And obviously Mariota won the Heisman.
It's a cool environment at the very least.
They're both awesome college quarterbacks, by the way. There is still some ties. I mean, there's
2 of the best college quarterbacks ever
of all time, for sure. Mariota, all time great college quarterback. Tua, obviously, what he did winning a championship at Alabama. No, for sure. So it'll be a fun game. I mean, obviously, we're going to be intrigued by it because it's our 2 teams playing it. Not much to play for necessarily, but there's still some guys on both teams that you have intrigue in. Like you said, A-Chain, fantasy wise. Again, Washington's got some dudes. Debo,
I was interested in this game because I wanted to bring this up with you. I mean, the Dolphins are in a huge crossroads right now, and I just wanted to know what your kind of outlook was future wise, like Tua, McDaniels. Obviously, I'm not sure if you're a McDaniels guy, but Tua and Waddle. I don't know if you wanted them traded. So just kind of like I want to hear your output on. Yeah, kind of where you stand and what you wanted to happen for the trade deadline and going.
Well, I'm a Tua guy. For the trade deadline, I did not want to trade Waddle because he's so young. But if we got a first round pick plus something else, I mean, at that point, that's a really good package. So I mean, my thought process is
we're offering a 2027 one.
That's a really good pick. I like the 2020. I know Buffalo
to go to Buffalo would be tough though.
That would be tough, of course. So the team aspect, I don't want to turn to Buffalo. If it was up to me and I got a package like that, I would maybe Denver's calling, maybe somebody else was calling. That's fine because I do love Waddle, but again, my thought process is if you're not winning here, we need to get picks for the next regime of players because we have no GM right now. It's a vacant spot. I mean, Champ Kelly is the interim GM, but we don't have an actual GM yet. We'll have a search there. So my thought process is if you're 2-7, which they were prior to Sunday, trade everybody that you can who has value. I mean, even A-Chan is on the board. I mean, I don't want to trade A-Chan, but if you're going to get like a first round pick for a running back. You got to trade it. It doesn't say like running backs don't go for that much value. So I mean, whatever you're going to get for any of these guys for the next regime of front office people, you have to do it. I obviously am a Tua guy though, so I mean I don't want Tua to leave. But again, the new regime will have no loyalty to Tua, obviously. Yeah. And then McDaniel, I think McDaniel's a heck of a coach. I think he's a heck of a play caller specifically. But I mean, it is probably the end of the line. I mean, I've seen the Tua McDaniel ship at this point for 4 years, and it got us 2 playoff appearances, no playoff wins. I think the roster is just too far behind to just because here's the thing, and you know this, you're going to figure this out too with Washington. When you pay your quarterback so much money, it's just hard to build a roster. It just straight up is hard to build a functioning roster without like when we were good, Tua was making no money because he was on his rookie deal. So that roster was good because you could pay other guys. Now it's like Tyreek won't be back next year, I don't believe. He'll also just be older and off an injury. So it's like you have to revamp the roster, and if you're going to do that, usually that means you scrap the quarterback and everything else with it. So I don't know how it's going to go. Yeah. My thought process is because the Tua contract is so interesting, you can't really get out of it until after next year, unless you just straight up cut him and eat a lot of dead cap like Denver did with Russell Wilson. Yeah. Or you can just do what the Falcons did and keep him as a backup like Kirk Cousins, be the most expensive backup in the league. You could do that too. My thought process is you keep Tua, you draft a quarterback, and maybe he sits behind Tua for a year. I don't know, but your guess is as good as mine. The future is totally TBD for Miami right now. I guess we'll see how these last 6 weeks go, and that might dictate it. But I think McDaniel's job is pretty much. I don't think unless we like run the table here, I don't think he's going to keep his job. I really don't.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it comes down to is McDaniel. Or McDaniel's, I can't even remember.
McDaniel linked to Tua. Like if McDaniel's gone,
exactly.
No longer, yeah,
exactly. That's what I think is what it comes down to because the offense was built by him for him. It's a perfect marriage. Yeah. Exactly. And we saw it be very successful when like 100%. You said, when you guys had that deeper roster, when you were able to give Tyreek that deal, and he was in his prime and he was healthy.
So, Armstead was there. I mean, it was a loaded squad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the AFC East wasn't nearly as good, I guess, now without the Patriots.
Patriots are bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think that to me, it's just and in the league that we play in, it's so hard to see a guy like Tua where he talks about it. He doesn't have the same zip on the throw. He doesn't have the fastball. He's not the quickest guy. He's not the biggest guy. And so it's like he talks about the Josh Allen clip where he's like, oh, like well, I can't do half the things he does. It's like, well, why can we justify paying you double the same amount of money that he makes? So it's just so hard because I hate doing the hot seat talk stuff. I don't want, obviously I want the best for Tua. I think he's a great guy, but at a certain point it comes down to winning. So, I want to hear your take, obviously.
No, it's weird. Tua has a lot of critics that are just like, I don't know why people don't like Tua. Again, not like player aside.
I think it's weird because usually a guy gets hurt and it's like an opposite reaction.
Right.
It's more loved. And Tua almost got like dug in worse because he got.
No, I know. No one likes the quotes he said, even though he's almost always respectful to everybody. And he's almost always putting himself down.
He's like the nicest guy ever. Yeah. He's like the smiliest.
But people are mad because he had so much money now because he got the contract because he had an awesome year in 23, which, of course, looking back, it's like, why would you pay him if he has these injury histories?
Well, it's tough because the contract stuff is weird because in the NFL, that's just what you do.
That's just how it is.
You draft a quarterback, was it 6th or 10th or whatever you guys took him?
5th, yeah.
And you 5th, yeah. You take him 5th out of Alabama, and he does really well. He gets through the playoffs. It's just the contract you give him. It's what Trevor Lawrence is making.
That's what I'm saying.
Jordan Love is making. It's not ideal, but it's just what they do. So.
I was going to mention those exact same 2 guys because obviously the Tua clip with Allen went viral. It's like, well, Allen can do so many good things. And that was when we played Buffalo the first time. In Buffalo, and obviously Allen was so good in that game, and he was awesome.
And you guys actually played all right in that game too.
Played all right in that game, for sure.
Well played game from the Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but Tua says it, it's like, oh well, then why are you making more money than Allen then? Well, it's like, well, Jordan Love and Trevor are also making more money than Josh Allen, and can they do half the stuff that he does? Not really. Like no one can really do.
Nobody can do what Josh Allen does.
Besides like Lamar and Pat and maybe a couple other guys. It's very rare. So I just think he was giving Allen flowers, and then obviously the media took it and was like, well,
yeah, Tua, exactly.
Tua was terrible. He can't do anything. It's like that was like the way they spun it, but. Ultimately, I still like Tua a lot. He's had some rough games this year, no doubt. He's regressed to the mean a little bit because I still think when he's in there, usually his numbers are really well. The numbers this year, the turnovers have been up. I think he's playing a little bit more reckless because I think he knows at this point it's like whatever. What do I have to lose at this point, right? I think he knows McDaniel's job is a little bit warm. I think he knows his own job is a little bit warm, so he's playing a little bit more reckless. It's leading to bigger plays. We had the 2 big touchdowns last week to Buffalo, the deep shot to Waddle. It's leading to bigger plays, but also he has a little bit more interceptions. He's usually very good at taking care of the ball. This year it's been a little bit more turnovers and bunches, blah blah blah. But overall, I mean, we're 3-7. These next 7 weeks will dictate whether or not he's long for the Dolphins. My guess would be they're going to be like a 6-11 team, and they'll probably clean house, starting with McDaniel, and then whether or not Tua, if McDaniel's not there anymore, obviously Tua is more vulnerable because he's kind of linked to McDaniel.
Yeah.
Well. But it's gonna be very interesting. I mean, this game on Sunday morning may not be for everybody, but it is gonna be for us too. We're gonna watch these. We're gonna watch this game because obviously it's our two teams playing in it, and there's still some stuff. There's still some storylines to take away from it. I mean, Dan Quinn and McDaniel were on that Falcon staff together when they went to the Super Bowl, obviously with Kyle Shanahan as the OC. But McDaniel had a lot of good things to say about Dan Quinn. So it'll be interesting to see how that game unfolds. But
yeah, I mean, a cool environment in Madrid there. I mean,
first ever game in Spain. So there's a lot of interesting storylines about it, interesting little wrinkles about it. But overall, lots of football that we're going to be getting into this week, this next 3 weeks, George. Again, we talk about college. Next 3 weeks are going to be loaded slate.
Two really good playoff races in both of them. So
yeah, and then in the NFL, it starts getting ramped up around Thanksgiving time with all these crazy matchups and AFC playoff picture, NFC playoff picture taking into fold. So very interesting stuff, George. We will be back sometime next week to recap all of it and talk about more stuff. But yeah, awesome episode, George, and we will see you next time.
Yes, sir.
Looking for an edge. Gets his single.